This beautiful, sunny, icy morning is day 5. Of the January 96 7-day retreat in Springwater. What seems to coalesce most in questions that are brought up in meetings is this whole movement of wanting. Comes up in many different conversations and meetings. Someone mentioning a while ago, I love to watch the sunset behind the trees and see the light slipping away across the snow. And then I want that forever. I don't want to give it up. Not content with knowing that it may be there when I'm not there. I want to be there for it and have it forever. Someone else mentioning last night with a smile. It's always the same thing, wanting and fearing, wanting and fearing. And yet, underneath it all, there is great love. Someone else saying, there's a real paradox one watches wanting in sitting quietly, this constant hum of wanting. Wanting this, that, in one's imagination. Wanting to be something or be nothing. Wanting to be enlightened. Wanting, wanting, wanting. Seeing the tumultuousness, the disturbance of that. Not allowing the quietness of sitting. Sort of filling it up with its hum. And on the other hand, wanting to live differently from the way we are, with quietness, peacefulness, that's also equally a want, without which I wouldn't be here. To sit quietly on a beautiful, bright, sunny morning. And last night a group meeting started right out with, in a training center with more structure than we have here. You can't want all the things that get gratified at this center. You may want them, but you don't get them. You may not get extra soy sauce to put on your food. And, lo and behold, you discover that food is all right, even without soy sauce. By fulfilling people's needs here as we do, are we preventing this occurrence of finding out that we can also live without all of these wants being fulfilled? Just in saying this last thing, what comes to mind is, during the war, living in wartime Germany, and particularly also in after-war Germany, there wasn't much food, and certainly not delicious choice food. So there was no choice but to live with that and content that one had anything, and yet a strong desire for more. Sometimes when there was such monotony in the fare, just this particular kind of cabbage, sort of a crinkly cabbage, 3 times a day, sometimes with the luxury of a few measly potatoes. The imagination, the dreams, it was all filled with delicious food, even though one was happy to eat what one got. So maybe, since the last thing is foremost in the mind, can we structure ourselves, or should we structure ourselves in such a way that we could eliminate wants, or see that we can live quite well without them? Well, for those of us who have lived with structure, formalism, strict requirements, what you could do, what you couldn't do, which then also needs to be enforced and patrolled. If you were told not to close your eyes, someone went around and watched, sometimes sort of bending down and looking, are these eyes really open or closed? And if they were closed, you got a note. You're not doing what you're told. This was ego, having one's own way. So there are all kinds of things that happen in a system of enforcement of rules to curb wanting or to make you live without them, that side effects galore. I don't have to go into that. It isn't called for right now. And does one really find out the root source of all wanting by curbing it? Or does one need to curb wanting in order to become interested in what it is and listen to it quietly, on one's own accord, because one has experienced in the course of one's day-to-day living not just the pleasures of wanting, but the pains, the confinement and misery of discontent, which is unfulfilled wanting. Somebody mentioned it in the beginning. I think I brought it up in a meeting, having been in a disco and a lot of eating, drinking, dancing, laughing, joking, saying superficially to oneself what a good time one is having, and seeing at the same time there's no good time at all. There's something very sad in all of us here, dancing around and laughing so loudly. What are we laughing away? I'm not saying one shouldn't go to disco and have a good time and laugh. I love to laugh. But something brings one to stop and wonder what it is about all of this wanting. And maybe see that there is no wanting that does not go together with fearing. If I don't want anything, I don't have to fear not getting it or losing it. But if I get something I want, I'm afraid I may not have it forever, because I want it so badly and I want it to last forever. And then the fear of ending, the pleasure ending, my life ending. Caw, caw, caw. Is it possible to hear it without wanting? Yesterday, coming back from a brisk walk, it was much colder than imagined because this house warms up so incredibly when the sun shines. Oh, it's cold, breezy, nippy. But returning uphill, the body was warm with energy, climbing, brisk walking. And then pausing for a moment and looking eastward, a few bare trees drenched in sunlight and a very, very blue sky, a few clouds, and 4 or 5 crows, black as black could be, flying across. Caw, caw, caw. The judging mind was at ease. It couldn't say what was going on. But there was no wanting, no fearing. It was all totally sufficient unto itself. With no one separate from all of this. Incredible beauty. So, maybe for a time, some of us need to enter into structure, find out more about what we can live with, what we can adjust to. But if there isn't this fundamental urge or yearning to find out about ourselves, what we are, what the meaning of this life is, why are we so unhappy? Not always happy, so discontented, so fearful, so agonized by our past, so enclosed in the story of our life. If there isn't some yearning to see clearly, what I am all about, what this world is all about, what the source of it is, the living source. Will structures do it for us? I don't know. One has to experiment with it oneself. Besides, if one feels in need of structure, why not impose it upon oneself for a while? Make out a schedule. This was also mentioned. If one wants to get up, one gets up. If one wants to take a walk, one take a walk. And that may happen just at a moment where it may be good for one to just stay put and stay with the anxiety, stay with the pain, or look at the anger or frustration, rather than escape from it onto a walk through the woods. I haven't found, since leaving most structures, there are some here, since leaving most structures behind, I have not found that people lack this yearning for finding out about themselves, for sitting quietly in the presence of turmoil, and for coming to a point where there is no choice but to stay with it, whether one goes on a walk or not. Going on a walk may not be an escape. But who am I to tell about it? This is something for each one of us to come across ourselves with a freshly born mind, which puts aside all one's biases and prejudices and attachments and nostalgia, and looks anew, listens anew to the hum of wanting and fearing. One may find on that walk that there isn't a moment that goes by in which there isn't some wanting. As one person reported so eloquently, seeing the light slip away across the snow and wanting it forever. There's no place in life that we may find ourselves where it's not worthwhile to stop and look and listen to what's happening this moment, without prejudging or post-judging, which is not easy, because prejudging and post-judging is a deeply, deeply installed program. To look at a cloud and the blue sky and the outline of trees without leaves. It's possible to watch it, see it without wanting. The wanting may be there. Does it come into view as crisply as that tree without leaves? And the blue sky filtering through it, seeing the wanting and not wanting to judge it, just see it as clear as daylight, with no action taken for or against it, because there is no actor. There's only tree and clouds and sky, and feeling thoughts of wanting arising and dissipating. When there is this clarity of watching, without needing to interfere with anything. Is that possible? Let's find out next time we walk. Because there may not even be present-mindedness for a good part of the walk. As the snow crunches under the feet, the mind churns about what I'll do when I get back home, the things I have to write that went wrong, hopes, remembrances, old stories, filling the mind so that there is no presence with the walk, just as often there is no presence in sitting. Of course there's sitting going on, but mind is so filled with the turbulence of thought, there's no awareness, or seemingly no awareness. And then it happens. There's a waking up from a dream, noticing for a moment all that's what's going on. The memory still holds it for a while. All the stuff that was thought about and dreamt about and emoted about, hoped for and feared, for a moment that comes into view, at a moment of coming to, of waking up from a dream, night dream or daydream. And such a crucial moment in our life, a moment of coming to what's actually happening or has just happened. And is it possible at that moment not to just keep on with wanting it to be different, fretting about it, down on oneself or down on others? Who made me this way? Or why can't I, after all of these years of attending retreats, why can't this mind on day 5 be a little bit more quiet and empty. That's the new thought that fills it at a moment of having just woken up from a dream. Such a crucial moment. Is it possible at that moment to just hold it? Listen, look, wonder. Aware of the urge to do something, but just listening to the urge. Not letting it become action or reaction. That's the holding power of attention. The staying power. Stay with what's there. And the memory that's still reverberated for a moment will not stay long. Just to listen what's happening. But not listen for something, just listen and let whatever is there appear, if it will. More wanting, more fearing. Here it is. Amazing. One person saying, it was not just one person, several people yesterday saying the same old thing all day long, wanting and fearing. And yet with a smile, because there's some space in which all of this displays itself. Some space in which it need not be condemned or accepted, just seen without any fabulous results. That's what we're waiting for, fabulous results to show themselves for our work, for our retreating. Which is more wanting. Listen to the hum of it, not get entangled in the content of it, which seems so difficult. But actually it's so very simple. Because here we are. A breathing, heart-beating, blood-circulating, stomach-gurgling organism with sensitive organs of perception to hear the subtle motion of a fan, some people moving, and the breath flowing. Maybe some tingling in the fingers or joints. Maybe what we call pain in the knees or back, headache. Listen to it in a fresh simplicity, not wanting it to be otherwise. Is that possible? We don't know, but we can find out. And beware of expecting spectacular results from this. Because all that we've read about enlightenment stories and the like is right there in the mind, waiting to be experienced and to be projected in a comparative way on what's happening now. Is this all? This can't be all. I want more. And the body humming in some form of discontent. So, it seems to be a given for a human being like you and me, ordinary people. It seems to be a given that there's constant wanting, constant desiring, and constant fearing, with a few interludes maybe where we're so entertained with something or absorbed that for a while those emotions are at rest. But most of the time, if one watches it, desiring, goes on and fearing accompanies it, or the other way around. A state of fear manifests and the desire to be rid of it. Is that all we are? This ever the same, so it seems, it's always a little bit different, but in a way, ever the same cycle of desiring and discontent, and content and more desire or fear of losing. And grabbing for the objects, grasping for them, that will give us fulfillment, and then finding out they do not. Is there a different way of living? Is that possible, or is this our lot to live like this? Because if one doesn't mind it, likes it, enjoys that kind of energy, one won't even be here to find out about it. And we're not condemning it. Is that clear? Somebody mentioned to me, your talks are so prescriptive. Are they? I don't mean to prescribe things. We're sharing, looking at things together, questioning fundamentally into what's going on in this human being. The memory that comes up right now, long before I had ever heard about Zen practice, or spiritual practice for that matter. We had adopted a tiny baby, 6 days old. It was very quick. We were called by the doctor when the mother went into labor already. And 6 days later, we had this little baby, picked him up in a basket at the doctor's office. We were not to go to the hospital, not to meet the mother. The mother was not to meet her baby. Must have been really some amazing 6 days for this little baby. Not just amazing, maybe painful, I don't know. So here, we brought this baby home in the basket. Amazing thing is he was awake. Tiny 6-day-old baby. Awake, we stopped in at friends who had 3 children. I knew nothing about even how to really properly hold or unbundle this little bundled baby. My friend says, let's look what this baby looks like. And she unwrapped all of these blankets. He had so much hair. Looked like a beetle. I mean, the singing Beatles at that time, that was quite the rage to have this long. He was still awake. So we had a cup of soup there. We drove him home. There was some milk buried in the basket, already made up, so we warmed that up. And then he started crying. And we fed him. And one of those beginning days of holding this really strange baby object in my arms, having dutifully read and seen other mothers pat the baby on the back so he would burp, which he would not. Patting. I sat in this little darkish room. It was winter time, like now, no sunshine. And sort of working at it to get that burp up. And all of a sudden, something happened which is not describable, but people will recognize it who have experienced similarly. All effort, all problem, all duality, if you want to use that elaborate word, dropped off. There was no problem left, and instead an abundance of joy and love, and this was no longer a baby object. I don't know what it was, but there was just enormous love and joy and oneness, if you will. I couldn't wait for Kyle to get home to tell him, but I couldn't tell him. It was impossible. So where did the wanting go? Wanting him to birth, wanting to be the right mother for this baby. It was all not there. Something natural took its place. I don't mean natural motherhood, none of that stuff. Just being there together. Words don't do it. It was a world without a problem. And whatever needed to be done, well, there was energy to do it. I'm not saying this lasted forever. I don't know how long it lasted. I forgot that. But it was unforgettable. So if you asked right in and there, is that all we are, wanting and fearing and having to accomplish and needing to be good and right? I would have said right then and there, forget about all of that. Everything is all right. And we're not this subject-object division. We're one whole, palpitating whole of joy and love and affection. That's how it was that moment. There was no illusion in that. It was an amazing discovery. Amazing. So now as this one person said, now I come upon this paradox. I want this thing, but yet I can see that wanting becomes the big obstacle. And yet without wanting something other than this life of problems and of problem solving, and creating new problems while solving old ones, which is how we live. Is that all there is to life? Is that all there is to me? I want to find that out. So that want brings me to a place like this, or to a quiet time and spot in the home, in the apartment. A little quiet time. It doesn't hurt. It's amazing to find some quiet time with all of one's agonies and seemingly insolvable past history. To quietly be there with it all and watch the hum of wanting, watch the obstruction that wanting poses. Always bringing up specters of what it is that I could have. The person who reported this couldn't have reported it if there hadn't been awareness of the fact that wanting becomes an obstacle, even though it brought me here. So I watch it. Excuse the words, it's not I watching it. So there's some awareness dawning, which it does because it's there. All by itself. And yet not unrelated to the fact that I do sit down or take a quiet walk to listen to the ongoing hums and turmoil without knowing what to do about it. I don't quite bring up the memory of the whole incident where somebody reported feeling so totally helpless in the face of something that one didn't want. And stay with that total helplessness. Because there is no controller of this mind except thought running, which includes the thought that there is a controller. But it's only thought. Leave it alone, let it run. Like one Zen master said, give your thoughts a wide, huge pasture. Then you don't have to herd in the cattle. Let it graze vastly, widely. And maybe awareness is there to see and report that it's always the same, and yet with a smile. And great love underneath it all. We will end here for today.